Thank you. As I said, I've been working with wxPython on Python for a long time. So why not go mode? I've got two important projects to meet. One's called Barry's Emacs, and the other's called Workbench. They both use wxPython and Python, and I use them day to day at work and at home in my engineering. And as I improve them, I build against the latest versions of wxPython. And it got to the point where we discover bugs in wxPython. So this is normal, you just go report them and you hope you get a fix or a workaround. They broke stuff that was pretty important, like cut and paste. So on the Mac, the clipboard's got UTF-8 in it, and they paste it to UTF-16. So ASCII becomes Chinese. Not very cool. That bug so far has been unacknowledged for a year, and it seems like something they should be really upset about and fix. I got to the point where, the hell with this, I'll fix it myself. So I took their source code and I compiled it, and it won't compile. Okay, well, I'll code examine it, and I'll look at the cut and paste code. And I read the actual documentation, and I found out what was going on. And I added to the bug I could see this UTF-8, UTF-16 confusion. Still no acknowledgements. A couple of other bugs later, and I was sort of getting frustrated. I was busy. And then they came out with an alpha version that was called Python 3, and I thought, finally. And I wanted to go to Python 3. And I tried to move to their Python 3 build, but I found I had to do an awful lot of porting. And I found that, well, if I'm going to do this, let's look around at the other things that are available. And Qt is the obvious big guy to go and look at. So I started doing so that's how. So that's why I started looking at Qt. I've looked at it in the past. Originally, some of the licenses were not so great, so I avoided it. So I came back, started writing Hello World programs, and I was delighted at how really easy it was to put up simple stuff. So at that point, I took my Barry's Emacs. So Barry's Emacs architecture is there's an editor that's in C++, which is a Python extension. And there's a UI that does all the menus, drawing on the screen, mouse, keyboard, all that stuff is written in Python. And I did that because then I write one UI and it runs on Windows, on Mac, and on Linux. And I don't need to understand Windows toolkits and Mac toolkits, it's all done nicely. It took, well, so I need to understand what's going on, so I started looking around the documentation. wxPython's docs are pretty good. And they have lots of examples which are really cool. The Qt docs are also really, really good. You do need, when you're coding in Python, to be familiar with some C++ syntax because the real documentation is only C++. But I thought, right, well, if I'm going to port, I'll take the smaller of the two programs and I'll start writing the new version in Qt. And that's what I did. I have to read my notes, otherwise I forget to say something important. So, wxPython at the high enough level and Qt look very similar. You need this application object, you have a main window object, you have objects that are lists of trees. There's very similar concepts between them. So, I just started running the old code with Qt imports and watched it crash, where it said, well, I'm using objects that don't exist. And I would then go and look up what's the Qt version of the application, fix up calls for that, and move my way on. Sort of just letting I'm sort of running it as a test, and then as soon as the test fails, which it's doing lots in the early stages, finding out what I needed to know, and updating the code. And then when I start seeing patterns, I then go and ripple through in all the places that it needs to do it. And pretty fast, I had the main window up, I had some menus, and I had a toolbar, and then I had to figure out cool things to do with status bars, but bit by bit, I was getting it to start to look like it's the old code. And it took me 4 days. I was then editing the next bug in Barry's Emacs in Qt, in Barry's Emacs written in Qt. I was like, okay, well, if I could do it that quickly, then why on earth pull to the wxPython? Because the PyQt primitives are far cooler. Their slot signal mechanism for events works really, really well. Lots of other stuff. The next thing I wanted to do was take the Workbench application, which is a source code management program. The original one allows you to use Subversion, but I wanted to come into the modern world and add Git and other things in. So I started working on that, and I used something of a similar approach, where I started building up the pieces bit by bit. And I found that, again, I was making pretty good progress. It's a lot harder to build the Workbench. There's a hell of a lot more code to it. But essentially, I was stealing old code, doing the obvious refactor from wxPython to Qt and running it and seeing results. So I was getting a tree list of what was in Subversion and what was in Git up pretty fast. So that, and having seen I was making progress and not seeing the old bugs that I was trying to get away from, I was hooked. I want to keep going. Just checking I didn't miss anything there. Okay, so the PyQt bindings for Qt are really good. I'm astonished at how, if you read in the C++ documentation about variable names, about whatever it is, it's in the Python version. And you get the arrow that you have to replace with a dot, but pretty much everything is just about there. There are a handful of things that you need to do a little bit of transliteration, but it's just sort of like constants, they put them in a different place. But all that stuff was, working out really well. The documentation for Qt, as I say, was really good. I do miss that wxPython has this cool thing in their documentation app that you could pull out you could run the example code in the demo app, and you could modify it and see how it works, and then cut and paste it into your own app. Those sorts of immediate interactivity things, not yet in Qt, but I'm sort of senior enough to develop, I don't need that hand holding as much. As I say, the only real fallback is if you get hung up on C++, you will find some of the Qt docs just a bit tough to read. I don't think I've ever come across anything in the Qt docs that did not do what it said it would do. I misunderstood what they'd written, but I've never, and in some cases to catastrophic results, but I've never found that they documented anything in error. I'm sure they have somewhere, but I've not found it. Everything works the way they say it works. That is not true of wxPython. It might work on one of the 3 or 4 platforms they support the way they describe it, but it certainly doesn't on all of them. And you're always having to know about the platform differences. That, I was delighted to see, went away. The only platform differences I need to know about are fundamentals of the operating system, the way font sizes work. So what is considered to be a legible size on Windows as a point size is different from Linux, is different from Mac. You end up needing to just know that there's this scaling factor between operating systems. So your defaults are never going to be, in one it might be 13 point something, in another it might be 10 point something. Apart from that sort of stuff, I didn't need to know much about which platform I was currently on. as I say, I've been using wxPython for more than 10 years. And up until recent times, and I don't know why, their support has been brilliant, but it's not there now. I don't know if that's changed in recent times, but I've now moved on. I found that PyQt support is pretty good. There are some issues they will not answer. The most embarrassing one is that when your program exits, it will crash. Because apparently they haven't figured out that when Python destroys the Python wrapper, that the C++ inside it may have already gone. And then they dereference it and crash. And they are very silent on that one, and I don't know why. When I get bored, I'll try and find out why. And if I can fix it, I'll fix it. There was one thing that I completely got sideswiped by. So if I show you what hello, are you not there? Come on there and get D. So this is obviously a tree view, a list view, basically just the text control, and it's just another couple of text controls. That I got going straight away. This was easy. That took me ages. I couldn't get my head around the model view controller world they had built to do tables. I ended up buying a book, which is Advanced Qt Programming by Mike Summerfield. It's for Qt4, but it's completely relevant to Qt5. I read that, I went back and experimented, I made small programs, and eventually the penny dropped. And I absolutely love their table view model controller stuff. It's brilliant. That table has got a model behind it that knows all of the files in that folder, and I don't have to care how they render the view. I don't have to care about any issues with sizing. They do all of that, and it's just wonderful. I can control details in every cell in that table, and I've got lots of control, but the defaults just work. I'm going to modify something. Sorry, that's happening on my screen. So that got modified, and then I just color it and I put the other things up, and that just got redone as the app took focus. All that stuff just worked, and then I can play around and finish off. Don't do that. I can't see it on my screen. Okay. I can bring up diff window, PyConUK. Once I got my head around how to do those tables, I was off and away. And I use them for all sorts of stuff to make the UI more interesting. It's just, as soon as you've got a model, as soon as you've got some database of some sort that you, in this case, pulled out of the source control system, I can start representing the tables. You know, the log history, the commits and things, all that stuff. You just write, you figure out what visualization is, you figure out what the models are. That, I personally find very hard. If you get stuff, Mike Summerfield's book is good to give you the concepts and tell you how to do that stuff. I guess the only other thing that I can remember where I got slowed up was I forgot to call the super of one of the methods I overrode. And I was blaming Qt for not updating its tables with my mouse selections properly. And it all turned out to be my fault. I prevented them knowing that I'd even touched the mouse. It was amazing it even worked as well as it did. So, So this is my current baby that I'm developing. I've got support for Git repositories, support for SVN repositories, and the beginnings of support for Mercurial repositories. And I'm trying to all get them up to the same first-class level. And I wanted it all to work in similar ways. You'll notice that as I flip around, the toolbar changes automatically, menu bars change automatically. All of that stuff was pretty easy to do in Qt. I don't know how I'd have done it in wxPython. I'm finding I can think about doing more complicated things that make the user experience easier. And I'm not going back. I'm not going back. Usually when I'm working on two screens, they're right. Okay, that one you have to unzoom. No, not that one. Right. So, this is my editor. I've been maintaining this for 36 years. The original was posted by James Gosling of Java fame to the Usenet. Where I worked, digital equipment, we pulled it off the Usenet, and internally we started building our own version, fixing these bugs. James Gosling can never remember to free and always overruns the end of a buffer he's allocated, which might explain Java. The core of this has been through many, many transformations, but it still runs its monolith language. If you had a function you wrote in those original days in the early 1980s, it still runs, so it maintained backwards compatibility. But it's got syntax coloring, it's full Unicode support, but I don't do UIs in anything with Python. This entire thing is Python UI. All of the input drawings. So the scripting knows to do the script inside the editor knows how to do highlighting. That communicates to C++ code, which says please redraw the screen, and Python code does the redraw. Curiously, to make it perform well on a GUI, I use the same algorithm to optimize drawing as is used on an RS-232 terminal running a 1200 pound modem. Because you still cannot push pixels fast enough. Doing full screen pixel drawing will actually slow down your apps unless you're harder on the open GL. Can't go, not the Qt level. At least I haven't found a way. If you're interested, I provide on Barry's Emacs all binary packages for Mac and Windows, and you can build it for Linux trivially. All the code is on GitHub for both projects. If you want to look around and see how I've done things inside, I was showing someone earlier how I do background thread management. Yes, that's it.
Has anyone got questions for Barry?
So it's been a long time since I did any GUI programming, but I used to use wxWidgets, HScape, and I'm sure I remember reading at the time that PyQt and PySide were going at the same sort of time. Is PySide still going, or is that another alternative to PyQt?
It is an alternative. And the good news is the Qt company is now going to release PySide. I think I'm going to release, once Qt is behind PySide, I don't know where PyQt will be. I can't see the Qt company releasing PySide to the set feeds when you exit normally. I'm looking to that. They are promising big things with PySide. That's only happened in the last couple of weeks. I'm expecting But I will move to PySide and I will walk to it.
Sorry, I think the main difference is that PyQt is basically the core business for a company. Which is not they fill functions for the company. So basically, unless Phil steps under a bus, that company is going to be around, and it's been the most reliable option throughout the last 10 years, 12 years it's been around.
Yeah.
Whereas PySide sort of goes in ebbs and flows depending on basically the agenda of the main Qt developers. It was Nokia, which basically pushed it out because they couldn't acquire Riverbank.
It's been unloved, hasn't it, for quite a while?
Yeah, it's been unloved. Now it's being revived a bit, but it's always a bit out there. Whereas, for Qt, commercially speaking, I think it's much more reliable than PySide.
I would guess that the earliest they would have something 6 months, probably more likely a year. They are promising a lot of high-level QA for PySide. That doesn't come quickly, but once they release, I think it would be churlish not to go and look at it and see what they've got.
But in theory, the two should be pretty the same, so you should be able to switch between the two, just change the import. So you can start developing with one, and then if you prefer the other one for some reason, you should be able to switch.
And as you say, Phil does brilliant support. Phil Thompson?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Although this business about send being on exit, he's a bit silent on.
Any more questions? We've got a good amount of time. Russell.
You mentioned with wxPython and Python 3 being a failure. Does that imply that the Phoenix project doesn't have a future as far as you're concerned?
I ran Phoenix. I tried porting to it. I did that about 6 months ago. It was an alpha, and it lived up to its name. I liked the refactors I was seeing, but I needed to ship to my users now, and I had bugs unacknowledged for a year, and I had the free time to go and solve that problem, and I just love Qt. It's a far better designed architecture. The things that I expected to kick me in the butt or have me write extra glue logic or zero-length timers to get around event loop updates, I needed to do almost none of that. In fact, I stripped out code that defended against widgets not sized things. It was just work. It sort of quotes just worked. I mean, the other cool thing I found was that they do. No, it doesn't show in this one, and it's broken in the other one at the moment. They do style sheets. So I put in the ability to change the font, and what I do is I say from the app, the style sheet changes with this font size as default for everything. And it just ripples down the entire tree live and redraws the new font size. Everything just resizes. And it's just like, that's dead cool. I mean, I don't even know where all the widgets are in my tree. So there's so many bloody UI objects in the other just to track them down and then to have to set font size on every bloody object. And it just worked. It was wonderful. So I keep on being surprised about the level of thought they put in where things just work. And things like the tables, and when I did forget to pass on the super of one of the mouse event things, did hold me up a while. But there's only one bug I know about. Resize you. This is a filter box. So if I put there's no dot flags in there, we'll put forward on there. So I put txt, and I come down to the txts. You'll notice my cursor just changed. That's the box. That's the bit of furniture that's supposed to clear that box. Is part of that control. It's broken in 5.6.0. There's a bug, it's been fixed, I wait for the next release. It's like, great, They know it's broken. So I just I'll update to the next release of Qt when it comes out, and that will just work. And that's the only bug I know about that I'm waiting on any fix. And I know it's fixed. I just wait for the source code to be released.
Any more questions?
Oh, and it's already in Python 3. I'm not going to do Python 2 unless someone is paying me.
Have you tried using PyQt or PyGTK?
GTK, I would happily go to the fire and burn. It's the most hideous thing I've ever seen. I mean, someone writing a toolkit in C, it's just an abomination. I don't want to go near it. I mean, but I work at Qt level, and I don't even have to care about any of that stuff. What was it? TK-Inter. Well, I encountered that first about 25 years ago, and then it was cutting edge. It's a completely separate hierarchy of objects divorced from your code. So you're always being a facade. You're always wrapping them, not deriving from. At least that's the way I remember it. It's just too old. It's not nowhere near the sophistication Qt is. You know, the commercial guys driving, mobile APIs and all the other stuff because they want to sell products are paying these guys to deliver great toolkit. And then we get it as open source code as long as we release our code. Great, let me add it. KDE is built on top of this stuff on Linux. The other toolkits are, I don't see them as any competitor at the moment.
Sorry if I can add a perspective on GTK. The Python bindings for GTK, they're okay, but they are under-documented. So whereas the Qt stuff is very, very well documented. So in that sense, it's a bit more difficult to get to grip with. And also, I think it's a bit more sort of homegrown in a way. So it's a bit less formalized, whereas PyQt as a proper architecture is very well engineered. So that's been my experience.
It's very difficult to take anything using GTK and Python and package it. They use very clever import tricks to make the APIs get built. And if you attempt to do any of the PyQt type tricks, any of that stuff, it takes custom code to defeat what they do and then reproduce it in the frozen app. Qt is simple too. It's simple, pretty much. Find the DLLs, package them in the setup.exe, or in my case, find the dynlibs. That is a native Mac app that's written in Python using PyQt and a couple of other tricks behind the scenes. So I can package these things as end users expect to see them. A DMG they download and just drag the application onto a disk, and they're done. It's cool to be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that with GTK.
So I know there are a couple more questions, but I'm afraid we're out of time. So I have to thank Barry again.